I thought I was helping my athletes with vocal cord dysfunction by teaching them how to breathe diaphragmatically with a big breath. But I was wrong. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. I never had any training in vocal cord dysfunction, which we also know is sometimes referred to as PVFM, or more recently EILO. One day I got a referral from a speech pathologist who said, just do diaphragmatic breathing and pursed lips exhalation, and that's all you need to know. And I thought, great, that's easy. I can do that, no big deal. And so I had my patients starting to practice the techniques at home and then do it in their sport. And they were starting to show progress. So, I was feeling pretty good, pretty confident. Until one day when a patient came in with EILO, which I'll probably refer to it as EILO from now on. And she had a very different situation because she could not even breathe at rest sitting in a chair in my office. She could breathe for about 10 seconds before she felt the need to gasp for air. She was constantly yawning, even though she wasn't tired. And I thought, diaphragmatic breathing and pursed lips exhalation is not going to work for this person, and it wasn't. And so even though I was having some success with some patients, I wasn't having success with everybody. And I knew something was missing. I just didn't know what it was. So I took this course in breathing, where I learned about basic respiratory physiology. I learned about that breathing through the nose is better than breathing through the mouth. I learned about what truly normal breathing should feel like when you're at rest and when you're doing exercise. And then, a light bulb went on, and I thought, I wonder if I could apply this to my patients with EILO, and I wonder what would happen. I wonder what would happen if I tried it with this patient, with the yawning and the gasping for air. So when it came time to work on this with this patient, I was a bit nervous, and I was also a bit excited. And it went great. She no longer was yawning. She no longer felt the need to gasp for air. She had no EILO symptoms at all. She was running better, and she actually ended up running for a D1 college on the track and cross country team. Now, when she came to me, she was a senior, and she said that she had started with the problems back in 8th grade. So she had had the problem for 4 years. So, this change in approach, it changed everything for me. I began to look at breathing completely differently than I had before. It was like mind-blowing. So I kept using this approach with all my other EILO patients, and they all kept getting better. They all kept getting better. And what I realized is they were either breathing, too much volume, or in addition to breathing from the wrong spot, because as we know, most of them are breathing from the chest instead of the respiratory diaphragm. They were sometimes breathing too often. And so what they really needed to learn was to breathe less, not more. And it seems so counterintuitive, right? You want to get more oxygen in, then you want to take a bigger breath, get more oxygen. But actually, you get more oxygen if you're breathing less, because these people were already breathing too much, and their pattern was off, and everything was just off. So I had to dial it way back for them and start from square one. So my approach changed to being proactive and, like I said, looking at breathing from the get-go, from just breathing at rest. So again, not only looking where they were breathing from, but how often were they breathing, how much volume were they breathing, were they stacking their breath, were they holding their breath, all these kinds of things. So that was really interesting to me. And then I also noticed that, their larynx is pretty tight and their chest is tight, or the respiratory diaphragm seems kind of stuck. So now I also address those things with a hands-on approach. And I also realized that, there are a lot of stressors whether it's from school or sports or family or friend drama or whatever, there are a lot of stressors that can affect EILO, and some of them are pretty subtle that the patients may not even really kind of, be aware of. So I realized that this EILO is a very complex disorder, and it takes an emotional toll on the patient. Usually they feel, first of all, they feel out of shape. They know they're not out of shape, but they feel out of shape. They get frustrated that they can't perform how they want to. They don't want to let their coaches down or themselves or their family or anyone. And they also feel kind of scared when these things happen and also embarrassed. And the parents also are stressed because they're worried. They see their child almost pass out at a track meet, and they're, calling 911. So it really impacts the whole family. So since then, I've been helping these patients with EILO these athletes who have EILO with improving their breathing using a holistic approach that's natural, that looks at the physical and the cognitive and the emotional aspects of breathing. So they not only learn to optimize oxygenation throughout their body by breathing in line with what their body can metabolize, but they're also not having any of their EILO symptoms. They're not having stridor, they're not having heaviness, numbness or tingling in their extremities, lightheadedness, throat closing sensation, nothing like that. And they're not using rescue techniques because they don't need to be rescued. They are just using these techniques and working with basic respiratory physiology and realizing that the body will heal itself in the moment that they're actually breathing. It's pretty cool to watch. So they're playing their sport confidently. They love that they can play their sport again. And a lot of times these patients are P.I.ing left and right. Not all of them, but quite a few end up playing their sport better than they ever did before. So I ask you, what's your biggest challenge, in treating these athletes with EILO? If you want to, I would appreciate if you put the comments, in the comments section, because I read every single one, and I'd like to know what your struggles are in treating these patients. And if this holistic approach, if it interests you, then I have an online course just for SLPs on how to evaluate and treat EILO in a holistic manner. So it's actually called the P.I.E approach level 1. And if you want to learn more about it, just go to P.I.E approach, P.I.E like apple, cherry, blueberry. Go to PIEapproach.com, and I will put a link for it in the description.